So Jon Jones said a lot of things about Tom Aspinall in this interview, apparently. He called him a meanie. He's a nobody. He has no titles. That's why he doesn't want to fight him. But Jones has the title. So how's that even an argument? You don't have titles. That's why I'm not going to fight you. But Jon, you have the title. And apparently, Jones straight up said he is not fighting Aspinall at all. Even if he was offered the money to fight Aspinall, he still will not fight him. So let's see what Jon Jones says here.
Everyone cares about this fight, it feels like. There's a lot of fans that felt like this fight shouldn't have been the fight. But from my point of view, it's like one of the most prestigious things I've been a part of in my whole career, being the main event of the Garden. And I'm grateful, and I'm very, very honored for the opportunity to be in this position.
I do agree with him. I do think that this could be one of his biggest fights in his career because, most of the casual fans are going to be the majority of the audience for big pay-per-view cards. And they probably don't know that Stipe's as old as he is and out of his prime. And they frankly don't watch anything other than Jon Jones, Conor McGregor, and some of the other bigger superstars. And there's no shade on that, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Casual fans are important for the sport. But that's the main reason as to why it probably feels so big is because there are a lot of people that are going to be watching that fight. Even though the hardcore fans who have watched Stipe's and Jones' entire careers, they understand the nuance of the fight and why it's maybe not as interesting to them as it is to the casual fan.
And you've made it known when you finally do have your opponent, you watch tape on them, so you know everything, all their ticks, why they step, why they throw hit kicks, why they block certain things. When you break down Stipe, a guy many people consider the greatest, it's usually between him, Kane, and DC as the most skilled heavyweights. Do you see him as the most skilled heavyweight the UFC has ever seen and possibly the most skilled opponent you've faced in the UFC?
That's a really interesting question. I like that question a lot, but he's not bringing up at all that Stipe's 42 years old. Sure, when Stipe was in his prime, he was arguably one of the most skilled heavyweights we've ever seen. He was a guy that could wrestle very well, he can box very well. He had great head movement, good footwork, tough, hits hard, precise with his right hand, good body shots as he's shown in the DC fight, but that's all years ago. He's not fighting the most skilled heavyweight of all time because Stipe's not how he used to be. Same with Anderson Silva, right? Anderson Silva is arguably the most skilled middleweight we've ever seen. But if someone fought Anderson Silva right now, no one's going to say they're fighting the most skilled middleweight of all time, right? Fighters don't stay the same forever. And there's multiple questions. Fighters don't stay the same forever, but let's see what Jon Jones says.
I think actually Daniel Cormier is probably the most skilled. His Olympic level wrestling, his dirty boxing, his boxing. But Stipe's beat Daniel Cormier. Stipe, he deserves to be here, man. He can wrestle. He always comes lean and in shape. He has great cardio, and he has that right hand. Whether it's the straight right, the overhand right, or the right uppercut. That's his real weapon. That's his ticket. We're very aware of that, and we're very prepared for that.
That's actually a good answer from Jon Jones. Other than him saying, Stipe belongs or he deserves to be in there. He deserves to be in there with Jon Jones, I 100% agree, but not for the heavyweight title. The only two fighters that deserve to be in a heavyweight title fight right now are Jon Jones, Tom Aspinall, and nobody else until they fight each other. Because Jon Jones is not the undisputed champion, right? We have an interim champion and we have a disputed champion. Jones will only be a disputed champion until he fights the interim champion. That's how it works. An undisputed champion means there's no one else with a belt in the weight class. You are undisputed. But him not underestimating Stipe, talking about the right hand, which Stipe is very good at. It's a good mentality from Jon Jones. He's not going to take Stipe lightly. He's thinking that he's going to be fighting the best version of Stipe because he has to think that way,
And just last one for me. I remember when you were prepared to fight Gustafsson the first time, all the questions were about Glover because he had just kind of been on the rise. And then you fought Glover, and all the questions were about Daniel Cormier. Everyone was like, what are you going to do after Glover? Now everyone's talking about another guy not named Stipe. So I guess why do you think that narrative has always followed your career? It's like fans and media never focus on the fight you have. It's always on the one they want to see next.
That's a complete false comparison. Saying, when you fought Alexander Gustafsson the first time, all the fans are talking about Glover Teixeira, which is true. When you fought this guy, other fans are talking about this contender. Well, that's because he was the champion in a division that was recycling with new talent. When Jon Jones came into the light heavyweight division, all those guys were older, man. They're all legends. They've been fighting each other forever. Until Jon Jones came in there, the new generation of the light heavyweight division, and then the rest followed behind him. There was a giant wave of talent climbing the light heavyweight division after Jon Jones became the champ. Gustafsson, Daniel Cormier, Glover Teixeira, Anthony Rumble Johnson, etc., etc., etc. That's not the same situation as Tom Aspinall and Stipe, though. Yes, Stipe is the next opponent for Jon Jones, but he doesn't deserve to be fighting for the belt. All those other guys that the fans wanted to fight Jon Jones deserve to fight for the title. All of them did by the time that they fought him. The only one that deserves to fight Jon Jones right now for the heavyweight title is Tom Aspinall and nobody else. It's not the same thing. Do you know what would be the same thing? If Jones fought Chuck Liddell or Tito Ortiz or welcomed Randy Couture to fight him for the light heavyweight title instead of Gustafsson or Glover. That's a better comparable situation than talking about Gustafsson fighting Jones, but the fans wanted Glover. No, the fans are still happy to see Gustafsson fight Jones, but they also wanted to see Glover fight Jones too. They wanted both. It wasn't one or the other.
You know, I don't want to sound arrogant, but I think what it is being so good at what I do that it's just almost never enough. I'm very aware that, you know, that the Tom Aspinall is like, it's making more headlines than Stipe.
Then fight him. If it's making more headlines, it's a bigger fight, right?
And it's just the way that it is with me. You know, when I win, there's always an excuse. Well, oh, he really wasn't that well-rounded, or yeah, it's an interesting place to be in. And it's hard to compare to any other fighter, because I don't think any other fighter in our sports history has ever had to deal with it. You know, like, you know, I just beat Cyril Gane, and
well, that's not true at all. Fans are doing the same thing to Khabib, right? They're talking about Khabib's opponents were all one-dimensional. None of them knew how to wrestle. People said the same thing about Demetrius Johnson, even worse than what, you know, Jon Jones. Demetrius Johnson's competition is probably the most underrated out of any great fighter in the sport, right? With Jon Jones, it's like a few fighters people are looking back at and saying, yo, he may be a little bit one-dimensional. Cyril Gane is more one-dimensional. He is than some of the other fighters that he beat. He's the best striker in the heavyweight division, but he had no wrestling. Even Francis Ngannou out-wrestled him. So no, him saying like no other champion has had their wins critiqued like Jon Jones's wins, that's not true at all.
And we can go back in a time machine and hear the way that people talked about Gane, his athleticism and his speed, and I mean what he did to Taitu Tavasa, and like, you know, and then as soon as I beat him, he's like, oh well, he wasn't that, or he's this, and like, so it's a very interesting place to be in, and it just is what it is.
Well, here's the thing. The Cyril Gane win was very good for him, right? He went up to the heavyweight division and beat one of the best heavyweights on the planet. Regardless if his style is one-dimensional, right? He doesn't have the wrestling to deal with Jon Jones. He didn't have the wrestling to fight Jon Jones. It's still a good win for Jones. But just like the journalist asked him, he's a guy who likes to study his opponent's skills and techniques and the stuff they're able to do in a fight. Jones knows that. Didn't Jon Jones say that the fight was going to be easy?
John, with that narrative, you've obviously been having a little bit of fun with it in the lead up to this fight. You're saying quack, quack on Twitter, addressing the duck things. What are those fans getting wrong? Why are you not ducking Tom Aspinall? What are they reading wrong about this situation?
Okay, so I feel like narratives have been created that just truly aren't there. You can't duck a man that you were never scheduled to fight. It's like saying you got turned down by a girl who you never even hit on.
Well, how can you be scheduled to fight someone when you refuse to fight them? Now, it could be true that he was never even offered the fight, right? And that's him saying that the UFC doesn't want him to fight Tom Aspinall, fight the interim champion. But even still, he was calling for Stipe, and he said after that he wants to fight Alex Pereira. And he says that Tom Aspinall does nothing for his career, implying that he's not going to fight Tom regardless. How can you say that you weren't scheduled to fight him, therefore you can't be ducking him when you refused to fight him in the first place? You said that you're not going to fight him, so I don't understand.
You know what I'm saying? It's like me and Dana and Hunter have never sat down and talked about Tom Aspinall. He's never been on my radar. Never. I mean, just a moment ago, it was him and Sergey that was fighting, and Sergey could be in this position right now, and I would still be in the same place. I've beat people my whole career, and once I beat them, like the show just goes on. Like. The French fans were just all over my case, and I just beat their guy, and I find myself constantly in the same position of, oh wow, he just beat another guy. Like what's next? You know what I mean? Like when I beat Glover Teixeira, he was on a 20-fight winning streak. and you beat Glover, and then everything just moves on. So for me personally now, it's just like,
Wait, but that's just how it works. You win and you move on. You don't sit on that win forever, right? Those are great wins. Like, why is he downplaying his wins? He just said that the fans downplay his wins, and now he's downplaying his own wins. He's saying, I beat these guys, and that's it. We all move on. It does nothing for me. This fight does nothing for me. I beat Glover's on a 20-win streak, and we just moved on. It's like, why? Those are great wins to look back on. Isn't this about legacy? Beating Glover, beating Gustafsson, beating Cyril Gahn, beating Tom Aspinall, like these are all very big for his legacy. It's not just one specific fight that's going to make his whole legacy. It's a combination of a bunch of good wins, right? Look at George St. Pierre. There's no one win out of GSP's career that made him a legend. He had to defend his title and consistently win for many, many years. And here's the difference about GSP, because I know some people will say, oh, but GSP won the middleweight title, and he didn't fight Robert Whittaker, who was the interim champion. But GSP vacated the title when he said that he wasn't going to fight Whittaker. Jon Jones is saying he's not going to fight Tom Aspinall, but he's still going to hold the heavyweight title and fight other guys. Imagine if GSP did not vacate his title, and instead of fighting Robert Whittaker, who was the interim champion after defeating Yoel Romero, GSP instead fought Vitor Belfort, or Dan Henderson, or any middleweight legend instead of the interim champion. That's what Jon Jones is doing in the heavyweight division. That would be the same thing with GSP then. No, but GSP, he had integrity for his division. He didn't want to hold up the weight class while he was negotiating on who he wanted to fight. He was scheduled to fight Bisping before there was any interim champion, right? There was no pullouts. There was no injuries like with the Jon Jones thing, right? Tom Aspinall and Sergey Pavlovich fought each other after Jones was scheduled to fight Stipe, right? But Jones pulled out with an injury and was available to fight Tom Aspinall after, right? That was not the same thing with GSP and Bisping. Those two were scheduled to fight each other, and they fought each other. GSP vacated the title quickly, allowed Robert Whittaker to become the undisputed champion without wasting the weight class's time.
I get that Tom is an exciting fighter. I get that finally, after 16 years, we found somebody who's 7 years younger than me and 30 pounds bigger than me. Like, we finally found someone who may give me a great challenge. And everyone wants to see it so bad. But for me, it's like, what is it? What's in it for me? He changes nothing if I beat him.
That's smart, right? Don't fight the toughest opponent. What if Shogun had the same mentality? No, I'm not going to fight the younger, bigger Jon Jones. Why would I do that? Or when Frankie Edgar fought Benson Henderson. I'm not going to fight the younger, bigger fighter. Why would I do that? I'm going to fight Jens Pulver or something. The way he's framing that, it does make fans think that he's scared of Tom Aspinall. He doesn't want to fight the younger, bigger fighter. He was the younger, bigger fighter for almost his entire career at light heavyweight. But as soon as there's another fighter that was in his position, he does want to give him that opportunity. The same opportunities that the legends that he fought gave him. The only fighter he ever gave the opportunity to was Dominic Reyes. And look what happened. He lost the fight. He won on the scorecards, but he lost the fight. And he ain't never doing that again as a champion. Dominic Reyes nearly beat him. The younger, similar sized fighter, right? He wasn't bigger than Jones, so it's not exactly the same advantage that Jones had when he came into the light heavyweight division fighting Shogun, Rashad, Lyoto, all those guys. But still, right? He gave Dominic Reyes the opportunity to fight him. Or should I say, Dominic Reyes earned his opportunity to fight Jones. Jones didn't duck him. Jones fought him, should have lost the fight, and then talked about how he didn't want to rematch Dominic Reyes. Remember that? He didn't even want to give Dominic Reyes a rematch. He talked about fighting Jan Blachowicz after.
Beating Tom is just like beating Cyril Gane. Has a whole country behind him. He's hot right now. What happens to me after I beat him? Nothing changes for me. So I'm not ducking Tom Aspinall. If I failed to fight Stipe, I would be ducking Stipe because we contractually have been signed up to fight over a year ago. This is Stipe's position. The Tom narrative came out of nowhere. He won a belt, and now suddenly I'm ducking him. I've never had negotiations to even fight him, if this makes sense. So the fans are just ignoring it. They're ignoring all logic, and they just have finally found someone that they think can compete with me, and everyone wants to see it now.
That's actually the best point Jon Jones made, right? Firstly, Aspinall is a very similar kind of fighter for him to Cyril Gahn. Right? He has his own country behind him. He's beating all of these contenders. He was an interim champion, right? But he lost to Francis Ngannou in a fight that I thought he should have won, but it was very close. Tom Aspinall is the interim champion right now. That's the difference, though. Like, Jones knows this, right? Jones was a champion for a long time. He knows how a champion works in a weight class. You fight the number one contender and you fight the interim champion. He was an interim champion before. What if Daniel Cormier said, hey, I'm not going to fight this cheat. He tested positive for steroids. I ain't going to fight him. He's a cheater. Daniel Cormier could have easily have taken that route, but Daniel Cormier's different. He's not going to duck any contender. any challenge. That's why we all respect Daniel Cormier, the hardcore fans, right? Now all of a sudden Jones forgot how a champion works. You are the disputed champion of the heavyweight division. You have an interim champion in your same weight class defending the belt. He defended the belt before you did against arguably tougher competition with Curtis Blades, right? A lot of fans believe Curtis Blades would beat Cyril Gane, and he also beat Pavlovich. And not only just beat these guys, steamrolled them, made those fights look easy. But it is a fair point that he said the UFC never came to him with a Tom Aspinall fight. Even if that's true, again, he denied Tom Aspinall. He said he's not going to fight Tom Aspinall, and he's going to go and fight Alex next. If it's not Alex, he's going to maybe retire. He even said he'll fight Derek Lewis and Jamal Hill, which I think he's kind of trolling at that point. But if he fought Derek Lewis instead of Tom Aspinall, that would be a legitimate blow to his legacy. But I think he's saying those kind of things, he'll fight Jamal Hill, Derek Lewis, etc., to kind of just annoy Tom Aspinall.
I guess the clarifying question then is, if Dana and Hunter do come to you after this fight, the figures make sense to you, would you then be open to fighting Tom Aspinall, or are you categorically thinking, he does nothing for me, I will not fight that guy?
He does nothing for me. He does nothing for me. If you're a person that wants to see me really challenged, then I get it, right? Like I said, 7 years younger, 35 pounds bigger than me, right? I get it. It's wow, this John's so good. We finally found someone way younger and way bigger than him.
So the UFC never came to him with a fight offer, but then he says if they did, he still will not fight him if the money made sense too. If they were willing to pay Jon Jones to fight Tom Aspinall, what Jon Jones deems reasonable for that fight, he would still not fight him. And he's not ducking Tom. The question asked to him was, if the UFC came to Jones with the money to fight Tom Aspinall, he still says he would not fight him because Tom Aspinall does nothing for his legacy. You know what also does nothing for your legacy? Beating Stipe. Beating Tom Aspinall does more for his legacy than beating Alex Pereira and Jamal Hill and Derek Lewis and all these other fighters that he's talking about fighting. And the whole argument with Alex Pereira, yes, he's a champion in the middleweight division and light heavyweight division. He's defended his belt 3 times. He's doing very well, right? He's a legend of the sport. One of the greatest light heavyweights of all time. But styles make fights. He has no grappling. At the end of the day, that's what matters. What can he do to Jon Jones? Nothing. Jones could bear crawl up to him, grab his ankles, and the fight is over. Frankly, Tom Aspinall could do the same thing. That's why Tom is the biggest fight here, because he's the hardest challenge for Jon Jones. He's the toughest fight in the UFC for Jon Jones right now. He's a well-rounded fighter. He's very fast. He's bigger than Jones. He's in his prime. He's getting better every single fight. He has knockout power, great submissions, good wrestling, amazing footwork. He's got it all, and he's a real heavyweight. There is no other fight that's bigger for Jones' legacy than fighting Tom Aspinall. If it's about belts, right? If it's about being champions, then why not fight Fedor next? Why not fight Chuck Liddell next? Those guys were all-time greats too. They have all the belts in the world, but why doesn't it make sense? They're not in their prime anymore. They don't have the skills anymore. The skills is what matters, not the belts. There's a bunch of old champions or former champions in the UFC that he can fight, right? They could bring back Anderson Silva to fight him. It doesn't mean it's a bigger legacy fight than beating Dricus or Alex Pereira or Tom Aspinall. The harder the matchup, the bigger it is for your legacy. Not how many champions you can be, because you don't absorb their belts when you beat them. You don't absorb their legacy when you beat them. Their legacy is their own because they're fighting in different weight classes, a completely different environment against different talent. Styles is what makes it all. Styles and skills. Can you imagine if Merab and Ilia Topuria had the same mentality as Jones? Imagine Merab says, I'm not going to fight Umar. He does nothing for my legacy. What has he done in his career? I want to have legacy fights. I want to fight the greatest bantamweight of all time, Dominic Cruz. That's my next fight because it does more for my career than fighting Umar Nurmagomedov. Imagine if Merab said that. Imagine if Ilia Topuria said, I'm not going to fight Diego Lopez. I want to fight the greatest featherweight of all time, Jose Aldo. I beat 2 champions, Max Holloway and Volkanovski. I want to beat another champion in Jose Aldo. It does more for my legacy than fighting Diego Lopez, even though Jose Aldo's way past his prime. It's too small for the featherweight division now. Can you imagine if all these other champions had the same mentality? Imagine Bilal Muhammad, right? Nah, I'm not going to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov. I want to fight Georges St. Pierre. I love GSP. Imagine if Dricus du Plessis is like, yo, I ain't going to fight Hamza Chimaev or Sean Strickland. I want to fight Anderson Silva for legacy. I beat 2 champions. I want to beat another. Give me Chris Weidman, actually. I want to fight Chris Weidman. He's a bigger legacy fight than Hamza and Sean Strickland. He's still fighting today. Give me Chris Weidman. Why not? Legacy fight. Former middleweight champion, one of the greatest middleweights of all time, defend his belt 3 times, a legend of the sport. Imagine if Dricus said that. The reason why so many fans are complaining, which are reasonable complaints, right, is because we're fans of MMA first. We're not just fans of Jon Jones. If you're just a fan of Jon Jones, then defend Jon Jones. But fans of the sport are defending the integrity of the sport. We don't want to see the heavyweight division get damaged for one fighter. Even though the weight class is, not great, there's not a lot of great talent. It's very top heavy, right? Only like the top 5 are good. We still don't want to see the integrity of the weight class take a blow for one fighter, even if that fighter is Jon Jones. It doesn't matter. The weight classes are bigger than any single fighter because there's a future in that weight class, right? Tom Aspinall has a future. He's the next guy that's going to be carrying the heavyweight division after Jon Jones and Stipe retire. And Jones is hurting his ability to do that, right? Because Tom doesn't care about Jones. Specifically, he even said it. He just wants to be the champ. He wants to be the best in the world. Whoever is the best in the world, he wants to fight that guy. That's what champions do, right? That's what champions do. And that's what the fans want to see. The fans want to see the best fight the best. 2 champions in the same weight class, they have to fight each other. That's what the fans want to see. It's that simple.
Let's see how he does it. I get that narrative. But for me, if you were my manager, if you were on my team, why not fight against Pereira, a guy who's the same age as you, and we walk around the same exact size? Right now, I had to eat a big breakfast because I'm getting underneath 235. Pereira walks around at like 240, and he has magnificent accolades. Business-wise, it makes more sense. I'm going to call him this, fight the nobody that may be more dangerous, or fight the guy with all the accolades who's incredibly dangerous, but it actually will affect your legacy. Me beating Cyril Gane didn't change anything for me, just gave me a few more millions. And it would be the same for Tom Aspinall, where when you look back and it's like John just beat Alex Pereira, it's bigger. It's just much bigger. And anybody who can't understand that logic simply doesn't want to.
That makes sense. He's doing like a risk assessment on his opponents, right? Who's the more dangerous fighter? I'd rather fight the less dangerous fighter with more accolades because it looks better, even though it's not realistically, right? So he's pretty much appealing to the casual fans, which is the majority of his audience, right? The majority of the people that watch Jon Jones are casual fans because he's a superstar. That's for every superstar, even Conor McGregor, Khabib, etc. So I understand that point, right? Why would he appeal to the smaller group of hardcore fans than the broader group of casual fans? That's essentially what this is coming down to. But then when he talked about weight and size, right, he said he would rather fight someone who's closer to his size, which is understandable, but you came up to the heavyweight division. These are heavyweights. You don't go up to heavyweight and expect to fight light heavyweights your size, right? When Ilia Topuria went up to lightweight, he didn't expect to fight fighters the size of Josh Emmett. He fought Jai Herbert. He was expecting to fight guys who were much bigger than him. Jones went up to heavyweight, and now he's like, nah, I ain't gonna fight these bigger guys. I want to fight Alex Pereira. I want to fight guys more my size, at my age. Does that mean he's gonna vacate the belt? Because then it's fine, right? As long as the heavyweight division can run normally, I think the fans will be fine with that. But there are gonna be a lot of fans that are gonna say that Jones ran away from Tom Aspinall and made all the excuses in the world not to fight him, for fans.
Last one for me. The gloves. It looks like we're switching back to the old UFC gloves after these new ones came in June. Do you have any thoughts on that? Are you excited about using the old gloves? And what is your opinion on that?
I'm really excited about the old gloves. I got sent a pair of the new gloves several weeks ago. I tried them on and I thought they were tight. I used to fit in XL, and then the new glove I had to put on the 3XL. The shape, curving your hands like that, they were very uncomfortable for me, and I was actually really stressed thinking about how am I going to go into fight week wearing these gloves that I don't even want to train in.
How am I going to eye poke these guys with my fingers curled downward? Now, I've heard other fighters say something similar. Some fighters like the new gloves, some fighters don't. And he's never fought in them before. He wore them for the first time. So, of course, they're going to be different, right? They're going to be a little bit more uncomfortable than the older model. But it's kind of funny. They changed the gloves for this card because they're veterans and legends on this card. So, most of them are used to the old gloves. Understandable. But weren't the new gloves designed for eye pokes, right? Reduce the amount of eye pokes. And you're getting 2 of the most notorious eye pokers in the UFC fighting on the same card, and you're giving them the old gloves that were not designed to reduce eye pokes as much as the new gloves are. He said he was stressed about the gloves because you can't poke Stipe. Stipe don't care about eye pokes and new gloves. And once those steam comes out of his ears, it's done.
So when I got a phone call recently, Hunter said, everyone on this card are veterans. Well, I put a bunch of vets in a new glove. Let's give you guys all what you're used to. It was a major relief to my coach, Brandon, who wraps my hands. it was a major relief to me as well.
I agree that the Alex Pereira fight would be massive. Obviously, the accolades, I think, is a really strong argument you make. That said, I think that one of the critiques people have is not that you picking Alex over Tom. It's the he doesn't deserve to fight me statement. When you compare his career at this point to when you got a title shot, he has more wins, more stoppages, more wins against ranked opponents, more main events. He's got the interim title. So what is your response to people saying, like, not that you take it Alex Pereira, I mean, gosh, the guy's amazing.
Right.
But Tom doesn't deserve me comment.
Well, maybe I didn't phrase it right. You know, the truth is he does deserve many great things in his life. And I wish him to have a magnificent UFC career. I really do. I have nothing personal against Tom. So maybe I shouldn't have said that he doesn't deserve, because he does deserve great things. What I'd like to see him do is go on and have a great career. You know, so many times people like to just try to go straight to the top, you know? And if we're in a business setting where he is and where I am, he wouldn't even be crossing paths with me. He wouldn't even be talking to me. You know what I'm saying? That's just what it is.
But Tom's at the top. He's the champion. And he beat the majority of the top 10 already. He beat most of the fighters in the top 10, which is something most champions have not done. Where there's like 3 champions, I think, that have done that currently. So I don't know what he means. Tom is not at the top yet, or he's reaching to go straight to the top. He's already there, but Jones is not acknowledging him. Him and Jones are on top of the mountain together. Tom's like, hey, John, let's fight. And Jones is like, oh, where's Stipe at? Stipe's not up here yet? Oh, I'm just going to rest. Tom just keeps calling his name. John, you're going to fight me? John. And the thing is, I know a lot of people will say, no, he's talking about like his greatness overall, right? Jones is at the absolute top. Aspinall's not as great as Jones. Okay, yeah, I agree. But with that same argument, then no one should fight Jon Jones. No one's near him. Stipe's not even near him. So why would he fight Jones? Like, it doesn't make sense. And it's not even about that. It's where you're ranked currently. Jones is not even number 1 pound for pound right now. To say that he's just above everybody right now is not correct. You're in the current rankings amongst the current fighters right now. And there's 2 champions currently in your current weight class. You're one of them, and Tom's one of them. And Tom Aspinall's one of them.
It's not about what Tom deserves or don't deserve. I believe it's what I do deserve. And after this many years with this company and all the work that I've put in, I believe I'm at a place where I deserve to be able to say, I don't want to fight that guy. I want to fight this guy. I want to fight that guy. And that's why I'm be more than willing to relinquish the belt. I don't feel like I need the heavyweight championship of the world. I feel like what I've created for myself is almost bigger than belts.
I agree. I've been saying that. Jones doesn't need the belt. He's bigger than the belt. He's bigger than being the champion of the heavyweight division. Then why didn't you vacate the title? Jones just said he doesn't need the belt. He's bigger than it. Why did you not vacate the title? And then all of the complaints would be gone. Tom Aspinall's the undisputed champion. He'd be defending his belt again instead of being a backup fighter. We could have seen Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane already, or maybe early next year or something. But no, Jones says he doesn't need the belt, but it's still on the line. Is he implying that it's not up to him? I don't understand. He's saying things like he wants Tom Aspinall to have a magnificent career, which is great to hear from Jones. And he wants Tom Aspinall to have a legacy of his own and be the heavyweight champion and do great things in his career. But you're keeping that heavyweight title hostage from him. He wishes you the best as he strikes you.
To take a step back and say, hey, you become the heavyweight champion. Go ahead and let's see you become a 17-time champion. Or let's see you even beat Stipe's record. That's going to be hard for anybody to do.
You know what's crazy about that? Beat Stipe's record? Tom is very close to that. Tom is 2 title defenses away from tying Stipe's record of most title defenses in UFC history. The only thing he doesn't have at that point is being a 2-time champion. But if he gets 4 title defenses, why would he need to become a 2-time champion then, right? If Tom Aspinall gets 3 more title defenses, right? Defends the title 3 more times, he is arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time. 3 more wins.
But what I do feel like I deserve is the ability to just take a step back and say, hey, either I retire or I start fighting fights that make sense to my legacy. And Alex Pereira is the only fight right now that makes sense to my legacy. A guy who's young and, my age and active still and have something worthwhile to me. Fans around the world, a lot of people really want to see me lose. They really want to see me lose. To see me walk away with all the chips, just irks people inside. And I'm glad to be in this position to walk away with all the chips.
Great for Jones, right? But not great for any other fighter. He's walking with all the chips in expense of everyone else. Now, it is a selfish sport, right? These guys are all in the fight game for themselves, essentially. When, fighters should be working together to get more fighter pay and all that sort of stuff. But I don't fault Jones for that. He is trying to do the most in his career before he retires in terms of, keeping the heavyweight title, messing over Tom Aspinall and all the other heavyweights. Who cares about them? Who cares about the heavyweight division? All this stuff. But then why does he say, he says he's going to walk home with all the chips, but then says he hopes Tom Aspinall has a magnificent career. Brother, you're holding his chips.
And yeah, at the end of the day, Pereira's worth risking it for me. I don't know how many ways I can say it, but he just doesn't have the titles. He can have high finishing rate, and all that type of stuff, but he doesn't have titles. And when you have 17 world titles, it only makes sense to fight somebody on your level.
Why doesn't he have the titles? And if the interim title is seemingly being ignored here, right? He said he doesn't have the titles. Well, he has an interim belt that he's defended, right? But I guess if that's not enough, how can he get the titles when the guy holding it doesn't want to fight him? How is Tom supposed to get the titles when Jones has a title and refuses to fight him?
And Tom Aspinall and Alex Pereira are not on the same level. Maybe they're both excited. They have the same excitement level. But when it comes down to what they are doing, they're not on the same level. And so for me, when I have belts and I have money and all that type of stuff, I'm looking for the legacy stuff. Tom doesn't give that to me. Hype, I would shut up hype, but I've been doing that my whole life. Is shutting up hype. Me selfishly, I want legacy.
I know you're undecided on retirement. It seems with each passing interview you're flip-flopping one way or the other. But if you could reflect on your career, do you have any regrets, or do you think everything has panned out the way that it's supposed to pan out?
And as far as retirement, the idea for me is to go out there and beat Stipe. How rude of us is it to just be completely looking past Stipe already? So the main goal is to get past Stipe. And if I can do it in a really dominant, devastating fashion, then the desire in my heart would be like, okay, now it's Alex Pereira. And if the UFC doesn't want that to happen, because ultimately it's the boss's decision, then it won't happen. And I'll just move on with my life. But that's one of the ways I look at it is, would you guys rather lose me or get one more super fight? And the only super fight that makes sense to me, not to everyone else, but to me and my team, is Alex Pereira.
All right, well, there it is. He doesn't want to fight Aspinall. It's over. He ain't fighting him regardless, even though he said he never got offered the fight. And, multiple times already throughout his interview, he said it. Even if he got offered the fight with good money to fight Aspinall, he still will not fight him. And now he's saying if he doesn't fight Alex, he will most likely retire.
Hey, John, just a quick one for you, man. And I think it's been great. Your answers have seemed really honest. And it's like, yes, Alex Pereira, from a business standpoint, makes more sense than Tom. And I also thought it was great that you were like a guy 7 years younger, 30 pounds heavier. I get it, why fans want to see it. And maybe some fans want to see you lose, but I also think fans just want to see you like really challenged. Like they see you as like you're this greatness, and we want to see greatness challenged. Like a lot of people, their favorite fight of yours is Alexander Gustafsson, So is there still a part of you like as a competitor that is drawn at all to that? Like I hear everything that you're saying, but I also and maybe that's just something about like getting older and what you've accomplished in your career, but I think that's why people want to see it. It's like they see it as like this great challenge. They want to see greatness challenge. Like does that entice you at all still?
There's a part of it that does, but if I'm being completely honest, I feel like Tom's been such an asshole that I don't want to do business with him. It's just like his fans have been so annoying. And obviously you don't get this far in a career being affected by fans or whatnot, but he's just an asshole, with his he's 30, so he's from this influencer generation where you hop online and the t-shirt sales and all that. I'm past that type of stuff. I'm like, bro, if you had a little bit more respect, then maybe we could have worked something out, but I just don't even want to do business with him. At the end of the day, this is a business. And fighting me gives him an opportunity to change his life forever. and I don't even want to give him the opportunity. Like he just played his cards wrong with me personally, and you know I'm 3 years from being a 40-year-old grown man. You know what I'm saying? It's just like the press conference, going through the whole shebang with him. I'd rather not do. Pereira on the other side, respectful, cool, barely says much. It's like I'll do business with you. I would risk it all with a human being like you. You actually have the accolades to back up your shit. This other guy is just a big mouth who's hot today. There's been so many guys who's hot today who are just gone. You know, Sergey was in the same position not too long ago. Now he's starting to fall off already. I've just been around this sport too long to give a big mouth who's hot today the opportunity.
Wait, has Tom been disrespectful? Tom seems like a very, very kind person. He may not be nice all the time, right? There's a difference between being nice and being kind. Being nice can also be negative. It can have negative results, right? Flattering. Flattering is not always a good thing, but that is part of being nice. Being kind is being honest, truthful, having values, having integrity, and all that sort of stuff. And maybe Tom doesn't say the stuff that everybody will like to hear, but he says it in the betterment of the people around him and for himself. He says the truth, right? I've never heard Tom trash talk somebody, right? And Tom said that he feels disrespected with the way that Jon Jones is handling this entire heavyweight thing. He feels like he's disrespected. I completely agree with him. There's a way that MMA is supposed to work. When there's two champions in one division, they're supposed to fight each other. And he's been very, even nice at times to Jon Jones, like in his post-fight interview with Curtis Blades, right? Hey, John, I respect you. I just want to fight the best. That's it. I don't know anything that Tom said that was truly just like outlandishly disrespectful to Jon Jones. If there's anything that they've done to each other that was disrespectful, is the way that Jon Jones is handling that entire situation. That's the disrespect. Not fighting Tom Aspinall when you're supposed to as a champion. So Jon Jones in this interview, he's made multiple different reasons as to why he doesn't want to fight Tom Aspinall. He says he's disrespectful. He says that he doesn't have the titles or the legacy. He says he's a nobody. He doesn't get him excited. He's too big for him. He's in the prime of his career. Like, these are multiple different reasons Jon Jones gave as to why he does not want to fight Tom Aspinall. And honestly, the only two things you can get out of that is that Jon Jones just wants easier fights at the end of his career. Fight Stipe, Alex, retire, right? Easier fights, which is understandable, right? If he didn't have the title, completely reasonable, right? But the other thing that fans will get out of it is that he's scared of Tom. I don't think he is, but man, all of the excuses that he gives to not fight him is just, it's hard to defend against it. And I've never seen an all-time great of any sport do this, besides maybe Floyd, right? But you look at every other all-time great, from Michael Jordan to LeBron James to Tiger Woods to Michael Phelps, Usain Bolt, everybody, all the all-time greats of every single sport, none of them have this mentality that Jones does. Imagine Usain Bolt said, well, I mean, he really doesn't even have a choice of who he competes against, right? In the Olympics, you go up against the best in the world. In the World Championships, you go up against the best in the world. So it is different than combat sports. But even in combat sports, you look at Kill Sanderson, you look at Muhammad Ali and Joe Louis back in the day, and everybody, most of the all-time greats do not think, I don't want to fight that guy because he might be too good, man. He might be too big. He might be too dangerous, and I'd rather fight guys my own age, and he's too mean and disrespectful. I don't want to fight a guy like that. I never heard the most competitive athletes in the world talk like that, ever. And they're trying to build Jon Jones as the Michael Jordan of MMA. That is disrespectful to Michael Jordan, because Michael Jordan would want to go up against the best in the world regardless to prove a point. He was the most competitive athlete ever. Him and Kobe especially, like, they want to go up against the best. Who's the best team? I want to play against them. Imagine if Michael Jordan said, nah, man, the Cleveland Cavaliers, like, their team are full of just really good players. They're much younger. They're much bigger. They're kind of disrespectful too, right? They're brash. They talk a lot. I wouldn't want to play against them. Imagine if Michael Jordan said that. No one would believe Jordan would ever say that. I would have said we wouldn't have thought that about Jones, but Jones has done this before, right? It's not his first time where he's ducked an opponent before. Remember that an entire event, UFC 151, got canceled because he didn't want to fight Chael Sonnen on short notice. And he didn't want to give Dominic Reyes a rematch. He didn't want to fight Francis Ngannou. He didn't even want to fight Stipe, even though now he's just going crazy about fighting Stipe. The true Michael Jordan of MMA is closer to someone like Demetrius Johnson, right? A fighter who ducked nobody, went up against the best in the world and made no excuses about it. Fought in a whole different division and fought the best there, right? This guy fought Dominic Cruz and the best in the flyweight division division as well. Went back up to 135 to fight those one championship guys. I would say George St. Pierre, but then again, when he came back to fight Bisping, he did kind of say Bisping had the highest stock, and he was essentially saying Bisping was the easiest fight at the time with the most benefit, right? And he would not want to fight guys like Romero and Whitaker and the other rising middleweights. So the interview was very interesting, to say the least. And I wonder if the journal's going to ask different questions in the press conference, but it's going to be interesting. Hey, what if, I wouldn't want to see it, right? Stipe's in the fight. Hopefully he goes in there and fights, right? But if like Tom Aspinall somehow stepped in, right? Let's say Stipe pulled out, Tom stepped in on short notice as the backup fighter to fight Jon Jones. How likely would Jones pull out of that fight?